We're back. The Sober Bros are back after a 2.5-year hiatus. Here we are. The show is returning. My name is David. This is my brother Daniel, and we are the Sober Bros. In this episode, we're going to share with you why the show ended, what's happened over the 2.5 years, some of the lessons that we've learned, and what's next for the show. So let's get into it.
All right, here we go.
So the Sober Bros started very spontaneously back in March of 2023. We've been alcohol addicts for 25 years. So we've been in the cycles of addictions for a long time. And so in the spring of 2023, my brother Daniel was drinking more than usual. And the usual for us was daily, 6-pack, bottle of wine, 2, 3, whatever. And so Daniel was really deep into it, and I kind of thought it was problematic. So I didn't have a gift for him. So for his birthday, which is March 19th, I decided, it just came to me one day, this idea, what if we did a podcast, a video podcast, and called it The Sober Bros, and we get sober on camera? And that was it. And I pitched the idea to Daniel. He liked it, to my surprise. And the show was born very spontaneously. The first 4 episodes we were drinking, and it was fun. And we were just sharing a lot of our backstory there. So if you're interested in watching those,
please go back and check those out. They're super fun.
And then by episode 5, we got sober. And the show ran for 5 months in 2023. And we had a great time. A lot of episodes like this, us just talking and sharing our stories and experiences. We also had some guests on for conversations and interviews. And we'll be doing more of that later this year. So that's how the show was born. But then at some point, we started having some differences and maybe creative opinions or directions. I kind of wanted to do my own thing. Also, my wife, Tracy, was pregnant, very much so at the time. And so her due date was coming up, and I kind of wanted to create some space for the birth so I could be kind of present for that new experience. It was my first time having a kid, and so it was kind of a big deal. And kind of take a break and do that. So that's kind of how the show ended. Ended on a good note.
Yeah, great note. I know I was deep in the trauma-based component of it, just digging into the bedrock of addiction. And that's kind of where I was going. I was very much into why we become alcoholics. I was very deep into my history and what brought me to that point, of needing something to make me feel okay, something to make me feel decent. And how I got to the point where I was drinking 3 bottles of wine easily, and my life was completely unraveling and negatively affecting my work, my family, my relationships. So I wanted to zap that, and you kind of wanted a different approach.
Yeah. So Daniel is a parent too. He has a daughter who's age 10. She just turned 10. And so I was really leaning into all right, so you get sober, what do you do? Because I was really energized and thinking forward, like productivity and things like that. And so whatever, it was a good time, and we learned a lot, and we made an impact in people's lives. We got a lot of views and comments and shares and messages. And that was really encouraging to know that the content that we were sharing was resonating with a lot of people.
Yeah, it was kind of unexpected, but I guess, we could have expected it, but I don't think we understood the desire for that kind of content.
Over the last 2.5 years, we have not remained sober. We've gone in and out of relapse cycles. After the show ended, I stayed sober for, I think, about 9 months through the pregnancy into the next year of 2024, all the way until April, until something happened, a lot of stress, and I let the justification voice, the bargaining voice, the addiction voice, the vice voice.
Yeah.
I allowed it to convince me to turn back to drinking to manage the stress I was going through. You started drinking
September of that year. So the podcast ended in July.
2 months.
Yeah. So, and then there was a relationship catastrophe. Again, that's what got us into this podcast, was like a huge relationship catastrophe. And that relationship was like kind of rekindled, and then it ended even more worse. It even ended even worse than the first time, which sent me right back. It was just like an auto reaction, instinctual, just boom. There wasn't even a thought about it, just I didn't go back as hard as that first time, that's for sure, but I definitely re-entered another cycle that lasted 6 months, at least 6 months, of heavier drinking before I was able to really come out of that.
And did you actually like have another sober streak after that, or
not really?
Just kind of cut back?
Just really cut back, to the first time in my life where I could actually just like have a couple of drinks and like not be overwhelmed by it. But even still, there was, in the back of my head, like, I just don't want this anymore. I'm 46 now, I'm 47 years old. And like, I just don't want that to be a part of my fucking life anymore. Even if it was only a couple of beers, I would wake up in the morning and there would just be this, like shame cycle, about it. So it might not, have been affecting me in certain ways, but there was the psychological component.
Yeah.
Just done.
Yeah. So you've kind of been in a functional alcoholic state, mildly, moderately.
Yeah. Not drinking every day,
but still kind of thinking you want to get sober.
Oh, for sure. Just to be done with it,
Yeah.
because it wasn't even like, again, it wasn't like affecting my life necessarily. Maybe in some ways I couldn't see, but when I turned 47, I was like, I want to get in the best shape of my life. I started doing Taekwondo.
With your daughter?
With my daughter. We found this studio in northern Arizona where we could both do it at the same time. And so I started seeing a physical therapist for, just like shoulder, just joint pain, knee pain, hip stuff. I want to get flexible, mobile. And so I invested in some ingestible health things besides my own company. And then I invested in some physical things, physical therapy, some stuff I can do at home just so I can get in the best shape of my life. And it doesn't resonate, just like the drinking plus doing that.
Yeah. The lifestyle choices don't really match up there. And it's especially noticeable with middle age and the older we get. Once you get into your early 40s, mid 40s, when you pair moderate drinking and maybe sedentary behaviors and age with drinking, it's just, I mean, I know I feel it, like
100%.
You get older and your body doesn't work as well. So you need to be proactive about movement and
just a couple of beers, kind of begins this inflammation cycle where there's stiffness, and like kind of being able to get out of bed slow. But, since beginning Taekwondo and this like physical thing, I'm able to like literally spin myself out of bed and like get up, quick, and I typically start my days with some kind of like movement. And yeah, I want this year to be when I get in the best physical shape of my life.
I think the timing was just really good for coming back to this show. And Daniel's in Arizona. Right now we're up in Cannon Beach, Oregon. Tracy and I live here. And so we actually flew Daniel up once we agreed to kick this show off to do a first few episodes together. So
yeah, David reached out to me a couple of weeks ago and just said, hey, like there's still people commenting on the videos that we haven't done, touched, or really much spoken about for 2.5 years. We were looking at it last night. By the time we ended the podcast, we had about 220 subscribers on the podcast 2.5 years ago. And just a couple of weeks ago, we hit 700. We haven't done anything. People are still searching for this kind of content. People are still commenting on how it's positively impacted their lives. There have been a few people who have been like, when is it going to be, rebooted? And so we're like, well, let's do it.
Yeah. So it's beneficial to us for accountability. I know accountability is really important for me to stay on the path. of health and wellness and success, because Daniel mentioned best shape of his life, financial abundance, so we can enjoy life and share that with, because you mentioned relationships earlier, so we can share that with other people, your daughter, the people close to you, your friends, your family.
Yeah.
And the community at large. And so this show that's really what it's all about, is us just keeping it real, having a good time, sharing the struggle, and having that conversation with people.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have been doing a lot of research into a couple of different areas. I've had to overcome these kinds of things. I have continued for the last 2.5 years of like getting to the bottom of like how I came to be this way. So for me, I've always been a student of history and wanting to know how I got to this place. And so I've have continued to spend a lot of time in therapy, getting to the bottom of this, having some like major breakthroughs, achieving benchmarks of mental and psychological, emotional freedom from having to rely on those things. In fact, like in the 2.5 years, not staying 100% sober, I found myself in a place of like being positive, a good mindset, and watching myself just like going back and like cracking a beer, popping open a bottle of wine. And I feel in my mind, like, why am I doing this? I don't even need to be doing this. It has like for a little while there, like a positive kind of feeling in the body. But then after like 30 minutes, an hour, you're just like, well, shit, now here I am, I'm in this place and I can't really I can't be productive anymore. So now like my evening's just kind of like a wash. And then you've been continuing your own research into the areas of life that you find really engaging as far as like moving forward and acquiring tools to be more productive, more successful, stronger mentally, emotionally.
Yeah, I've continued just researching all kinds of stuff and reading books and thinking. And I really got into journaling since we ended the show, which has been really helpful, which is something I've never done. So
like pen and paper?
No, I haven't used pen and paper for many years.
You know how to write though?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. I mean, I don't know why you would.
Last time I tried to write I got hand cramps. I can't do it.
Who writes?
I don't know. I type. Actually, I don't even really type that much anymore. Voice. I use Whisper Flow. Yeah. Which is not, because I use Apple products, and unfortunately the Siri dictation isn't very accurate or reliable.
Such fucking garbage. Yeah. It's crazy.
So I have a third-party app, Whisper Flow.
And that uses AI.
Yeah, and it's extremely accurate. So I just riff. I go.
That's crazy. Like how like I voice dictate shit and like it's so bad. Yeah. But any AI model.
I don't think we talked about
LLM.
That, yeah. I'm going to highly recommend you check out Whisper.
Language model.
Yeah. Check out Whisper Flow. It's very good. They have it.
I write.
Yeah. So
I do keep a journal.
I just talk, and that's a really good way to like, just, you don't have to censor yourself. You just talk. Yeah. When the show ended, I became a dad, and that was amazing and rough in all kinds of ways. And then I just thought I'd share a few things that happened to me over the last 2.5 years.
Yeah, please.
So we moved from the one house.
You guys moved a lot.
We moved a lot. We moved at least 8 times in the last 2.5 years. So there's been a lot of destabilization, not a lot of certainty in logistics for our lives. So we moved, and then we had a trailer, and we decided to take a road trip from Arizona to Texas to see the total solar eclipse in April of 2024. And so we did, and the road trip started good. The trailer was awesome. But at the time, so another thing that I was doing that for a reason to stop the podcast at that time was because I wanted to do client work, because I do online marketing kind of stuff. And so I had a client, and so I was traveling, trying to fulfill deliverables for a client while traveling. So my headspace was already kind of messed up, and I was stressing about money, which has been a consistent theme, which has never really ended, because I've been struggling to generate income as in my service provider role.
Yeah.
And client work has never been steady. Income has never been steady. Inflation's gone up, and we had a kid. And so I was just stressing about money. because Tracy had some savings and I didn't want to keep pulling from that, but that was the reality. So I was struggling with the reality of things and what I wanted, and there was a big disconnect. And we were traveling, which is, its own thing. And so I had to tell my client that I had to take a break and not do work while I was traveling so I could be present. That relieved some of the stress. But then the road trip became stressful because I personally have a very hard time driving and being on the roads and highways in particular, because I find that most drivers are not courteous and they are speeding and tailgating. And for me, I really like to enjoy a ride and be grateful for driving and to go the speed limit and not crash and stuff. So I like a smooth ride.
Yeah, not being in a rush.
Yeah. But everybody's like in a rush and switching lanes and cutting you off and tailgating, and that's just really bad for me. And so I was exposed to that every minute of every day while we're trying to find places to stay, dealing with a newborn. At the time, he was like 6 months old.
Yeah.
And so that's rough. And you're sleep deprived. We were. Miles has never really been a good sleeper until now. So all that was going on. We saw the eclipse. The eclipse was great. And we were going to go to Florida just because we wanted to go to Florida. But I was so stressed out and wanting to have stability so I could have consistent client work for generating income to provide. And so we decided to go back to Sedona. And so we went back to Sedona, but the drive back was just horrible. And Texas is really horrible in my opinion too, because it's really much of it is just oil fields.
Yeah.
And diesel trucks tailgating you. And so you can't breathe out there. And I was sober and smoke free. I quit smoking in February of that year. And so my mental health was suffering.
Yeah.
It was. And so by the time we got back to Sedona, I was so wrecked from the road trip that I wanted to decompress. And I was like, I want to get a 6-pack and some tobacco for this weekend only and just decompress. And then we'll start anew in Sedona. And so that weekend turned into another year of drinking and smoking. It wasn't just a weekend, But we got a year lease at a house in Sedona and stayed there for a year. And I resumed outreach for getting clients and stuff. And that I got a few small pickup clients here and there, but nothing great, not a lot of income.
Yeah.
And so I was doing a lot of outreach, and months went by, and the more outreach I did, and it was not effective, it became too much. It was kind of exhausting. And, so I just stopped. I had to just stop and take a break. But then I resumed it, and it wasn't going well. And our relationship was eroding because I was stressed out. And so that spills over into the relationship. And you're still learning how to become a parent, and you're dealing with all this stuff. And I really didn't like the living in Sedona anymore. And so I was just really stressed out. Anyway, I had a panic attack, first one in my life, in September of 2024. Panic attack. And if you've ever had one, it's not pleasant.
No.
I never thought I would have one, but I did. And so it just kind of hit me like a wrecking ball. And so I had to deal with that. And that day I went for a bike ride. I thought I needed to tune into some sort of positive content to consume. And so I was on YouTube and I found something by Joe Dispenza, and he was talking about meditation and energy and all this stuff. And it really hit me.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I need that.
Yeah.
And so that day I just started looking into Joe Dispenza. I binged his content. I started taking mad notes, and then I started meditating.
TM.
Yeah, because I was actually trained years ago in transcendental meditation. I got my mantra. I paid my $800.
What is it?
I can't tell you. I cannot tell anyone my mantra. It's sworn to secrecy. Yeah. They prick you and take your blood and make you swear. No, I'm kidding. They don't do that, but they do tell you not to tell anyone.
For sure.
So anyway, I started meditating, and it was helpful through October of that year. I was like, I've started feeling.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah. It was a big shift.
Yeah. But that
for a while
lasted a month, and then I stopped meditating because I thought I was good. And then through November and December, I just was on a decline again. I was sinking underwater again. And so by the time December rolled around, when I would wake up and open my eyes, I was horrified that I had to survive a day.
Another day.
And I could not wait until nighttime until I could just be alone and drink and numb.
Yep.
And then that cycle was that was it, the days through December into January. It was horrible for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And so by the time January came, Tracy and I decided, I have to skip over a lot of details. I'm just giving the bullet points. Tracy and I decided that I should just go away and be alone for like a month. So we got me a short-term rental up on the Oregon coast so I could like decompress and get my shit together. Honestly, I thought we were going to get a divorce and I would go off and do something. And I don't know, I couldn't even think straight. I didn't know what was going to happen. So after a month, I felt better. I didn't stop drinking. I cut back to like 2 beers, but it was enough. And I felt like we could patch things up and things would be better. So I flew back to Sedona. We kind of got back together. And then, I started meditating again. And we decided we should leave Sedona because I didn't really want to be there. And so we'd move up to the Oregon coast because I really like it there. I'm from here. We were born in Portland. And so we did. We got a U-Haul, sold some stuff, and we moved up to the Oregon coast. And then my plan was to stop drinking and smoking, but that didn't happen. And then Tracy and I got a job at a resort place that we used to work at in Idaho. So the plan was to move out there. So we moved again to Idaho on the border of Wyoming. And so we lived there for the summer of 2025. May, June, July, August, September. And we worked there and it was fun, but things
wasn't perfect.
It wasn't perfect and our relationship wasn't healed and I didn't stop drinking or smoking. And so everything was just sort of swept under the rug. Nothing was really resolved in me or our relationship or anything. And my client work was not going okay still. So everything kind of fell apart and we were going to split up and stuff. And we decided we would move to Boise because Tracy wanted to check it out and I was open to it. So the plan was to go to Boise. We would get 2 separate living quarters in town and co-parent and see how that goes for a few months. And so that was the plan. We both got a place. Our places both ended up sucking for different reasons. And so we only stayed there for a month. And we were like, okay, well, I think we can patch up our relationship enough. Let's just move back to the Oregon coast. I didn't stop drinking or smoking. And client work was not going great. I had one client, and this was just sort of how things were going. And then nothing ever really got better. And then we moved again on to another spot along the coast. And now we moved again here to where we're at now. And that's pretty much what's happened with me. Cycles of drinking. Actually, in January of this year, I got sober and I quit smoking. And so February, March, April, into May, I was sober and smoke free.
Yep.
However, over the last few weeks, I've had drinks like 6-7 nights. And I kind of picked up a pouch of tobacco and have been smoking for maybe 2 weeks. But we are sober now. That's where we're at. Things got so bad this year. I actually had to stop doing outreach. And that's when I decided we should pick up Sober Bros. I have a note on my wall that I've been trying to manifest over the past few months. It says, stop managing circumstances, start creating opportunities. And that's something I've been trying to think about, feel, call in, but it hasn't really worked. And then just the other day, I realized with this podcast, Sober Bros, that's kind of what's going on. Because I've been managing circumstances. And how many of you can relate to that in life? Whatever your situation is, you're probably trying to manage circumstances that almost you feel like you don't have agency, you're not in control, and the ship is sinking.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do? But you got to start creating opportunities, right? And that's what I've been thinking about. And so I've committed now to sobriety, the Sober Bros podcast, reconnecting with you, sharing our story, helping other people, creating opportunities. This podcast, I believe, I really feel, is a creation that will bring opportunities for you and me and the viewer and the listener and all of us together somehow. And that's my plan today and moving forward through the rest of this year. That's a little bit about my story.
Yeah, I think that, as we've talked about this a little bit, the whole client outreach type of thing, and how much of a struggle that was because, you're always kind of like, you're working for yourself, but you're working for somebody else. You're doing somebody else's shit. And you've never wanted to do that since you were a kid. You've never wanted to just do somebody else's vision, somebody else's dreams, somebody else's, whether or not it was schoolwork or whether or not it was like a schedule at a job. You just never really wanted to do that. But
I dropped out of high school. I went through hundreds of jobs. I would start one, quit after hours or days.
Yeah. And this is an opportunity to do something that you can be intellectually engaged in. You can be emotionally engaged in it because this is a topic that is very fascinating for you. It's deeply personal, and you get the space to like really dig into that and make it your own. And you're an incredibly talented producer, basically, of the podcast and with the sound and all the post-production and everything, but this is your own. And it's, as far as like, you're not doing this because it's your legacy, but inevitably it becomes a legacy because it's something that you can give everything into.
Yeah. And so, yeah, as you said, I love creating, and this is some stuff that I do for client work. Anything a business needs to succeed online is what I've been studying for 8 years, how to do content creation, photography, videography, audio engineering, color grading, just producing, editing, copywriting, ghostwriting, building websites, social media management, graphic design, all this kind of stuff. And so I put all of this into the show and try and make it something high quality and premium.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so that's kind of what's happened with me. And, I do want to approach it like a business,
Sure,
so
yeah.
this can be what sustains us to help other people, because without some sort of income generation from this, we won't be able to do much to help other people. So I put together sort of a business plan and some ideas and stuff. And it's really, as I said, we're coming back. It's been spontaneous, but I've been doing some work over the last week, putting a lot of this stuff to planning a path forward for this show. And so I'm actually really excited to see how it goes over the summer.
Yeah.
I'm thinking a course, a community, but what really is first and foremost is just free education and entertainment.
Yeah, entertainment. I think the first season of the podcast, a lot of it was there was an entertainment value to it, plus also just information there that people could really relate to and everything. But now we want to add on to that, keep it fun, keep it entertaining, but also keep it very, not very serious, but give something that people can really relate to, they can feel, they can be inspired by, they can be challenged by, but then also give them some resources, give the community, the viewership, some very accessible resources to be able to do at home, and not just once a week when the podcast is there, but like little daily reminders, because as recovering addicts, sometimes we need incessant reminders.
And so, this show is not just for people who are sober. If you're drinking right now and watching this show, you are welcome.
For sure.
We are not excluding anyone, men, women, any age. If you're 85 and you've been sober for 20 years, good for you. You're welcome. If you're 21 and you're struggling with marijuana and porn and drinking, you can continue doing that stuff and watch us and just sort of if you're sober curious, you're welcome. Everyone's welcome. And I've already created some helpful resources because we do want the entertainment and educational part of this to be actionable anytime in the 5-minute window where you're struggling with indecision. And so one of the things that we're doing with this podcast show now is we have a companion newsletter on Substack, and it's going to be the primary place where you can stay in touch with us. And so the link is in the description, and it's on Substack. And if you sign up for the newsletter, I already have created a free resource for you that you get automatically for subscribing. It's in the welcome email, and it's a journal prompt to help you think through hesitations, confusion, a decision that you've been back and forth with, the mental tug of war, whether it's in your relationship or work, any life area, business, financial, relationship, experiences, anything that you want to make a decision on. This prompt is for AI, where it's copy, paste. You put it into an AI and it runs the AI, it trains it on 8 psychological frameworks to help us think, should I do this or this? Instead of you just trying to
wrestle with your own mind.
This
I know who's going to win there.
Yeah.
Wrestle with your own mind. I know 9 times out of 10 who's going to win.
Exactly. So this is something that you can download for free and use anytime for anything. And so I found it actually really useful in my own journaling. Should I do this or that? I run this AI prompt, and it makes me think of things like a therapy session that I couldn't have thought of on my own.
Yeah.
And so anyway, there's that. And I've got more free resources coming too, but this is all stuff coming later this summer. But for now, you can stay tuned with us here on the show. This is our primary platform, YouTube. We're also on Spotify, the video podcast, as well as on Apple Podcasts. And then the Substack newsletter. We're going to be sending a newsletter once a week. Goes right to your inbox. It will be distillations from what we talk about on the show, as well as actionable takeaways that you can implement anytime.
Yeah, it's super cool because I listen to a lot of podcasts, but like you listen to one that's an hour long, 30 minutes long, whatever, and like how much of it actually absorbs. So it's nice to have a little thing to be able to go back to.
Mm-hmm.
What was that one thing you said, or that one topic, and kind of like go back into it?
Yep. And so that's the newsletter. And you can also chat with us on Substack, comment on these videos on YouTube. We check them all, and we love to hear from you. So until next time, stay free.